Show is back March 5th through the 8th at the Minneapolis Convention Center, where you can find the latest fishing and outdoor gear, boats, RVs, power sports, everything you need for the season, and you can join the fans Nordo. March 6th, 4 to 6 p.m. for a Friday night fish fry. All the details, KFAN.com, keyword calendar.
Second hour, Bumper to Bumper, Cake Show edition. Guardsy in for Barreiro today. Alec Lewis will join about 30 minutes from now. A lot of Viking stuff to talk about with him. Pat Kessler will make his weekly Wednesday appearance. And at some point, probably in the next half an hour or so, Pete Najarian, who was just in with Nordo yesterday, will join. He played for Lou Holtz at the University of Minnesota as we react to the news that Lou Holtz, the legendary coach, has died at 89 years old. His family announced today. Won the national championship at Notre Dame in 1988. We certainly are very familiar with the Holtz name and legacy here. He coached here for 2 seasons and then bolted for Notre Dame because of the Notre Dame clause in his contract and never looked back. Won the national championship, spent many more years at Notre Dame, spent some time at South Carolina later in his career, and then obviously a long, distinguished career on television as well. Pete Najarian, who has tweeted a lot about his coach here in the last few weeks as the news kind of trickled out that he was in his final days. He's going to join pretty quickly here, probably in the next 30 minutes or so. I'm looking forward to his thoughts and remembrances as a guy who, as I understand it, played for him both years that he was here. So at least 2 years, at least one of them. So I'm looking forward to that conversation because I know Pete holds him in very, very high regard and esteem, as many of his former players do. I did tease before we got the Lou Holtz news that I had to laugh today because Dan Minnesota, the official, unofficial historian of the Bumper to Bumper show and curator of the calendar of calamity, often tweets out on this day remembrances. And there's a very funny, I think, on this day topic or subject to get to here in a second, especially with the backdrop with what happened in Mississippi earlier in the week, Brett. The state of Mississippi, the legislature, the House of Representatives, have passed a bill that would exempt NIL earnings from state income tax. If you're not familiar with college sports, NIL is name, image, and likeness. It basically means money that you can pay players now legally, and we can't do anything about it. You may have been paying them forever and ever. That used to be a problem, used to be frowned upon. Now it's legal, it's fine, it's encouraged. They're allegedly trying to put some guardrails on it. I don't know if I've necessarily seen those lately. We know about the revenue sharing stuff where now schools can actually pay their own money to players, which cracks me up. And first of all, I always laugh because I wonder, would this happen in Minnesota? You've heard me play that game. Would this happen in the state of Minnesota at the University of Minnesota? The answer is no chance. None. We would never pass They
wouldn't pass up on taxes?
No taxes.
That? Well, that's what I'm saying. You'd have to forego taxes to help the athletic program?
They would not do that.
I don't think so.
They would not do that. And the school wouldn't even think about it either. It would be good. What if because this would be an advantage.
Yeah, let's go to St. Paul and try to pitch that.
This would be an advantage. And, Florida, Tennessee, and Texas have no state income tax. So that's SEC country. So Mississippi's going, what are we going to do? We got to even the playing field here. This is about football. This is about football in the South. We got to figure this out. What are we going to do? Let's go to the House of Representatives and let's pass a bill. And so apparently that's what they've done. So we'll see if, I don't know what else it needs down there to get final clearance to go into effect, but just cracks me up, especially with the backdrop of something that happened. What year would this have been? I want to say it's the 50-year anniversary, 1976. This happened 52 years ago, or 50 years ago. Here's the headline. U sets hearings for 2 cage players. Now, cage players, if you're not old enough, they used to call basketball players cagers because there used to be a cage around the courts. And if you go to Williams Arena, you can see old pictures where there's an actual cage.
So what? Keep the ball from going in the crowd?
I guess so. I'm not sure. But cagers was a popular term back then. Believe it or not, you can Google it. I'm not making it up. I had to learn it too.
They're not ultimate fighters?
They're not. No, It's different. They're not going into the octagon. But let me just read this story. And you're going to recognize some of the names. Hearings have been set for University of Minnesota basketball players Phil Saunders, better known as Flip, and Dave Winney, after the NCAA asked the university to declare the two ineligible for receiving excessive aid. That sounds bad, right? That sounds like it's a big deal, like it's a big problem.
We got a new sports car.
Whoa.
Yeah.
What did Flip and Dave Winnie do. Now, remember the story I just read? Mississippi House of Representatives said, the money we're paying players for NIL, we shouldn't tax them on that. Okay? Just remember that as the backdrop. Both will appear before the university's campus committee on student behavior in the first of a two-part hearing process. The Minneapolis Tribune learned Thursday the grounds for the NCAA allegations. Are you ready for this? Because we love Flip.
Excessive aid.
Excessive aid. And there's no more revered person than Flip Saunders on this show in this time slot, right? So I hate to even go down this road because these are some serious allegations that we're about to
him
hit
and KG. Yeah.
2 years ago, Saunders, a junior from Cleveland, Ohio, was allowed the use of a car belonging to the mother-in-law of a Gopher assistant coach to drive from Minneapolis to a summer basketball camp of former coach Bill Musselman in St. Peter, Minnesota. Saunders spent the night at the camp, and the NCAA alleges that the use of the car and free lodging and meals at the camp for that one night were excessive aid.
Oh my gosh. Above average at that.
It gets worse.
No.
It gets worse. Last year, during the recruitment of a high school prospect by telephone, Saunders was allowed to make a call to his parents without paying for it.
Oh my gosh.
Also considered excessive aid. In Winnie's case, the sophomore from Nashua, New Hampshire, is alleged to have received excessive entertainment and meals last spring after he was invited by a university basketball booster to spend the day at a cabin where he went canoeing and received meals and lodging.
Oh my gosh. Above average at that.
The stain.
Wow.
The stain on the legacy of the 1972 or 76 Golden Gophers.
They may as well be professionals if they're going to do that.
But it just cracks me up. Now, Musselman wasn't perfect. I didn't click on the jump, but Bill Musselman, even though obviously everybody knows Eric now, he's at USC. Everybody loves the warm up, at the Gophers. It's like every coach that's ever been here after that, they hear from the old timers. It was fun when Bill Musselman did the warm up. People they would ride around on bikes, and it was like the Globetrotters. It was just the best. Well, Musselman actually did commit 72 NCAA violations and like a series of other ones that there were actually some serious issues here. But it just cracked me up that this was a news story on the front page of the Minneapolis Tribune sports section. When you think about what is not only allowed now, but accepted now, encouraged now, and like demanded now, that Flip called his parents
for free,
long distance,
yeah,
and didn't pay him back.
Wow.
It's a beautiful thing, but that cracked me up from Dan Minnesota today. I hope Pete Najarian here in the next 10, 15 minutes to talk about the life of Lou Holtz, who died today. At least it was announced today by his family, died at 89. Pete played for Lou here at the U. I'm hoping to catch up with him. Alec Lewis will join us at the bottom of the hour. At least that's scheduled for now. We may move him back just a few minutes if Pete ends up calling here in the next 10, 15 minutes or so. And Pat Kessler will make his regular appearance in the 5 o'clock hour.
Be at the next big game or concert, we're giving away tickets to The Wild, Santana, the Doobie Brothers, Chris Stapleton, and plenty more. Enter today, KFAN.com, keyword contest.
Welcome back. Guardian for Barreiro today. Alec Lewis going to join sometime in the next 10, 15 minutes, probably right around 4:30. We're expecting a phone call from Pete Najarian, former Gopher who played for Lou Holtz at the University of Minnesota. If you're just catching up, Lou Holtz his family announced that he died, I believe, today at 89 years old. He had been in hospice care here recently, and there's been a lot of tributes and visits that have come out the last few weeks, but just checking a lot of Gopher-related people in my life, and they've got lots of tributes and conversations as well for two very memorable seasons here in Dinkytown before he moved on to Notre Dame. So hopefully Pete Najarian will be able to check in here in the next couple of minutes to give us his remembrances as a guy who played for him and I know stayed in touch over the years. Because it is fun, Brett, in my job when you're around the former players and you're just like a fly on the wall, like you don't really talk. You just maybe ask them a question or two and then let them share memories and share stories. And certainly as guys get older, and they're all getting older now, they've got a million great stories. And even though Lou was here for just 2 years, I know he made a huge impact on a lot of those guys from that era. You know, even Darryl Thompson, who I mentioned, was recruited by him. And, don't believe, I got to remember, did he play his freshman year for him or not? I got to figure that out. Shows you how well I listen from time to time. But anyway, so hopefully Pete Najarian will join here in a little bit. I do want to get back to the Kyler Murray discussion because it's been really the A topic the last, 24 hours since it was made known, I think right around the start of the show yesterday, that Kyler Murray would be released by the Arizona Cardinals. And I continue to be very, very intrigued by it. And I'm not happy that I'm intrigued by it because it's an admission that McCarthy mansions are now probably going to Murray mansions or Kyler condos. And
easy name change, though.
Easy name change. You only have to change out a couple of signs.
Yeah.
And really, the condos and mansions always stay the same. And then you just, you switch out the
signage.
Like the Jets and the Giants, you just leave New York there. Or Los Angeles for the Chargers and the Rams.
Yeah.
And you just flip over the side of it. It's no big deal there. But I'm intrigued by it. It all just depends on what are the Vikings doing? That's the question we have to answer. And that's what I'm trying to figure out with Alec Lewis, because the other rumor that we're hearing, the other reporting and speculation is that Jonathan Grenard apparently is available, that they're willing to possibly trade Jonathan Grenard. So I don't remember Jonathan Grenard's contract off the top of my head, but I remember being pretty favorable for a guy that has produced at the level that he has. So that's the thing. And I saw Charge tweet about it earlier today. It's what's the plan? Are we trying competitive rebuild again? Because that worked for a time until it didn't with Kwesi and KOC. They stripped a bunch of stuff down. They unwound a bunch of contracts. They got out from the Kirk Cousins contract. They tried to move forward into the next generation, the next wave. Well, now all of a sudden we got to unwind a bunch of more contracts because of the competitive rebuild, because of the free agent money that we spent, because of the extensions that we gave, $40-some million over the cap. Alec laid it out pretty well. Ben and Kevin have done it as well. It's pretty easy to get that number back more manageable with restructures and cutting guys. And we know the Aaron Jones news, the whole deal. But I can't help. It's just, okay, so if you trade Jonathan Grenard, to me what you're telling everybody is we're scrapping everything. We're starting over. It's not as much of a competitive rebuild as it is just a rebuild. But then at the same time, if you're bringing in Kyler Murray, that feels like a win now move. That feels like we need to win games. We're feeling the pressure. I can't imagine they feel so good about Dallas Turner in his second year that they're ready to just say he's ready for a bigger role. I know he improved. He certainly improved this year where he actually played. That was the low bar of improvement, or the low bar from a year ago was let's get him on the field and see what he can do. And he had some splash to him. He made some plays down the stretch. But it just seems like, to me, unless I'm missing something, and that's what I want to talk to Alec about when he joins, it seems like mixed messages of what the actual plan is. Because if you're trading Jonathan Grenard and you're going to let a bunch of guys go to unwind more salaries, then I almost think just throw JJ out there and see what the hell you have. Unless you think Kyler Murray is going to be your new JJ McCarthy, and you can get him for cheap, which you can, the veteran minimum.
Very cheap.
Because of what he's going to be owed for Arizona and how that whole thing works. It just, to me right now, seems like a lot of mixed messages about what is the actual plan. Now, they haven't brought Kyler Murray in. It's been reported, and Kevin Seifert was one that said it. I watched him on SportsCenter today, that he would be very high on the Vikings wish list. The Vikings would be very interested in him. Kevin's not making that up. That's not just coming out of nowhere. That's not how Seifert rolls. As Johnny Athletic once said, I don't do clickbait. Neither does Seifert. So that's coming from a pretty solid place. But it's if they do bring him in and they trade Grenard, and they do some of these other things. It's like, so what are we accomplishing? Because the other part of it is, Brett, is this year 4 for Kevin O'Connell or year 5? Regardless, he hasn't won a playoff game yet.
Yep.
They haven't made any type of run. They've had outstanding regular season success and nothing in the postseason. The pressure is on. Whether it should be or not, it's life in the NFL. And once you are around for a while and you've had some level of success, you're dealing with it right now with LaFleur, right?
Yeah.
Like there was legit, I mean, the Packer fan lines after that playoff game, it's like it's a miracle anybody survived that, right? Like it wasn't necessarily surprising to me. I actually am a LaFleur guy, but it's just, I'm just kind of curious what the plan is going to be. It looks like the hotline is ringing. So we're going to have Pete Najarian here in just a minute. And he'll talk about one of his old coaches, Lou Holtz, passing away at 89 years old. He is on the Connecticut Water Systems hotline. You have Alec Lewis's number, correct?
I do.
Would you mind texting him on their production meeting and just see if we can do 4:45 with him?
Okay.
Now that we're at 4:24.
He's a team player.
He's a team player. He'll definitely understand. Another team player is Pete Najarian, who is now setting a record for joining KFAN on consecutive days. He was with our guy Nordo yesterday and jumping on now. Thanks so much, man. I appreciate it. I know you're about to get on a plane, and I know you've known obviously about your old coach Lou Holtz for a while. I think we've even talked about it off the air. So how's today hit you? Like, who have you heard from? Kind of how are you processing what's gone on today?
Yeah, it's great to be with you, as always. And it's been fun being on KFAN, actually. You guys do a great job.
We love you, buddy.
I will say this. There's something special about Lou. I mean, he's one of these guys that I think all of us who ever had the opportunity, the wonderful opportunity to play for Coach, it was an experience like no other. And when he started to have some major issues of late, I was able to talk to him by FaceTime and talk to him a couple of different times and talk to Skip and the kids. And, he's a special guy. I mean, he was one of those kind of coaches where it wasn't just your head football coach. You knew that he wanted the very best out of you, but also for you. And it just, it's sad. It really is. But at the same time, he was not doing great. He looked okay, but wasn't looking like the Lou Holtz that I know, and certainly was slipping. So, I think we all know where he's ending up because he's a special person. And the lives that he touched, Justin, for so many years in all the places he were, whether it was Arkansas or whether it's Notre Dame or Minnesota or South Carolina, he really touched so many people and helped them along the way. And it didn't matter whether they were starters or somebody sitting on the bench. Everybody had access to Coach, and if he could do something for them, he did.
So let's start. And you correct me on the timelines when you can, because I get it all confused. But you're at the U. Okay. You've already played for the Gophers when Lou Holtz gets to town, correct?
Yes, sir. I'd been there for 3 years, so
okay.
I kind of felt like as one of those guys that it was sort of my team at the time as one of the players, at least on the defensive side of the football, for sure.
So what do you remember about your first impressions when this little guy with a funny voice comes in from Arkansas?
Well, it is funny you say that because, that was the quintessential Coach Holtz, and getting to know him and the very first time he showed up, he was still larger than life. But and his ability to communicate to people, especially his players, but was absolutely amazing. And he was a guy who just, I think he shined right away. And the only pushback that I ever had was I wanted him to know that I felt, as even though we weren't a great football team before we got Coach there, it was a situation where he was this special guy, but I wanted to let him know that, I was a part of this team in a big way and was really excited that he was there and we were going to turn that corner. But, I don't know that I was buying in as much as I probably should have early, but I certainly did change that quickly. The more I was around Coach, the more I got to love the guy and imitate him and have a lot of fun with him on and off the football field, which was great.
So what was it about his ability to connect and communicate and really motivate? I've seen the 30 for 30s, Pete, the Catholics versus convicts. I've seen, this is back in the day, as you know, where now every single motivational speech, pregame and postgame, is filmed and we get to see every moment, right?
Yeah.
Wasn't that way in the 80s. So what was it about how he could motivate? Because that's what keeps coming up over and over, was he knew how to get a team ready, man, for Saturday.
He really did, and I'll give you one great example of Coach. I mean, when we were playing at my senior year, his second year of coaching at the University of Minnesota, we were playing Oklahoma, the best team in all of football at the time, and he convinced us throughout the week, but specifically game day, that we could play with them, and not only play with them, we could beat them, and some coaches say that and it's just words. Some other coaches, kind of go through the whole thing, and that's what he did in the locker room. He would let us know how we were going to do it, why we'd be able to do it, and it was the motivational skills that he had were absolutely incredible, because there was not one guy in that locker room, I swear to you, and 100+ players sitting in there who didn't feel like, hey, we can take these guys. The way Coach just put it out there, we can win this football game. And we fought all the way to the bitter end, where we didn't actually get there, but we gave Oklahoma a better game than they ever would have expected. And we played great on defense, great on offense. Special teams was always something really special for Coach. He worked with those guys a lot, but just the way he could communicate and get you pumped up was unbelievable. I remember the very first game that he ever coached with us, and he, when he stepped into the locker room before the game, I thought to myself, man, this is right out of, a movie. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's just an amazing thing how he was able to just make you feel like you could run through that wall. And it was really special. And I'll tell you what, I loved every single game day with Coach. He's just an amazing guy of getting you pumped up like no coach I'd ever seen.
We're talking with Pete Najarian, former Gopher, played for Lou Holtz here at the U. Lou Holtz died at 89. His family announced today. A couple more minutes with Pete because he's jumping on a flight. Can you give people, Pete, a sense of how big a deal it was back then for you guys to go to the Independence Bowl, like for that team to finish 7-5, the 85 team? It's not now where you can go to a bowl game if you're 5-7 and get good grades, right? Like I've been to multiple games that way. And by the way, I love all bowl games. You know that. But to do what you guys did in that short period of time when there weren't 500 bowl games, that had to be a pretty big deal.
Well, and for the people who don't remember this, because I am getting old, man, but, we were 1-10 the year that the coaching staff was changed over to Lou Holtz. And first of all, he was a guy that any of us who ever watched The Tonight Show, he was a very, consistent guest for Johnny Carson on The Tonight Show. The guy he was that clever, that funny, that wonderful, and energy and everything that he had. And, when we started to get into it the very first year, we did so much better. Now, were we great? No, we weren't great, but we definitely turned the corner from a 1-10 team to winning almost enough games to get towards being into a bowl game at that time. But the second year, that was just magnificent. I mean, he structured it in such a way, and he was able to manipulate the television, matter of fact, that market, because we pretty much had a game every single week that was being televised. Okay. And it's because it was Coach Holtz. And the fact that we did get to go to a bowl game and get to get an opportunity to play a Clemson team that was outstanding. He didn't coach that game, which was unfortunate, but, he'd already accepted to go to Notre Dame. And it was just it was the biggest piece of the entire wonderful things that he did in his time at Minnesota, because he prepared us and gave us the opportunity to beat people the way that we did. And I'll tell you what, it was unbelievable for any of us to ever even think that we'd be at a bowl game. When you had as bad a teams as we had during my early parts of college, to get to where we were at the very end was unbelievable.
That's where I wanted to go next, the end, because as I talked about, he really has an interesting legacy here for a couple of reasons. One, in my opinion, Pete, he's made us all paranoid for the rest of our lives that anytime a coach has any success, they're leaving, right? And coaches have benefited from that greatly in forms of contract extensions and buyouts and things like that. And also the Metrodome. He was a proponent, if I recall correctly, of playing in the Dome, which was obviously not the best decision for the program long term. They finally got it back on campus. You're there all the time. It's a great vibe now, but it took a while. What do you remember about the end, and how aware were you of the quote unquote Notre Dame clause? And obviously, I think people understand why he took it, but that's a scar that's still here, as you know, for a lot of Gopher fans.
Yeah, and it's too bad that scar remains, right? I mean, that's unfortunate because I got to know Lou really, really well, and we became very good friends, and it's particularly after he was part of my life in college, and then suddenly he moved off to Notre Dame. You can't blame a coach for that. I mean, that was his ultimate place to ever be, and he got that opportunity. So I never held anything negative about Coach doing that, and as a matter of fact, I congratulated him. I also was part of the conversation with Paul Giel, the athletic director at the time, as a captain. He asked me, well, do you think we should have Lou coach the game? I said, I think he's the head coach of Notre Dame. So he didn't coach the Independence Bowl.
Yeah.
And he and I agreed on that. And it wasn't vindictive. It wasn't anything like that. But, I think it was learning from Coach, this is a team, and the team has to be a team. And there's no, me and the team part of it, all the rest of all the usual sayings that are out there. But I'll tell you, the guy had such a knack, and people shouldn't have anything negative to think about when they think about Lou Holtz. He got people in a space academically. He got them athletically. He took a 1-10 football team and turned us into a team going to a bowl game, like you said, when bowl games weren't every single day, and you didn't even have to have a winning record. I mean, it was really special. And I can tell you, as a part of that team, it was fun teasing him and talking like him behind his back.
I'm sure.
When he would be doing some of the things he did in front of the press and in front of the team and all the rest of it. And you know what? He and I became great friends for sure when he was at ESPN and I was at ESPN, and had the opportunity to work together once in a while there. And I'll tell you, outside of my father, he and Coach Osborne, I tell you what, I'm one of the luckiest guys in the world because I feel like I had three of the greatest dads ever.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about your relationship after, because you've hinted at it and you've talked about it. And I think I've even seen pictures of you guys, all your teammates getting together. And you and I have talked off air. It's one of my favorite parts of the job, is being just adjacent to all you former Gophers that have had all these moments. And I know he FaceTimed into a couple reunions here within the last few years. But how did your relationship change as you became a former player of his and, more of a coworker or whatever you want to call it? But how did that relationship change? In what ways?
Well, when he's the coach, he's truly the head coach, and he's a guy that you have all the respect for in the world. And but there's certain things that you can't really discuss, and there's certain things that you don't really broach to be involved with or whatever. But I'll tell you what, it was the greatest thing in the world to see how wonderful the guy was and how much he would do anything for me without me having to ask sometimes, Justin. I mean, it was just absolutely amazing when they brought me on to ESPN and I was working with him on a couple of occasions. The guy treated me as if I was a peer, and I wasn't. I still looked up to him, and I always feel like, as a player, captain and all the rest of it, you're still below that head coach. I mean, you love him to death, and you'll do anything. You'll run through a wall for him and all that. But it's something really special that it became just a friendship. And, like I say, he literally, in a lot of different ways, was sort of in that position where, he's almost like a second father, which I never felt like as a player, but it certainly did transform into something like that later on in life. And I was lucky enough to, when I was down in Florida, to at least have the opportunity to speak with him. And that goes back about a month ago when we started finding out that he was in hospice and all the rest of it. And he, just a special guy, man. I mean, what he did with so many players, and that's what I know I brought that up before, but I'm saying it again because not players that were starters that, he kind of owed them. It was anybody and everybody, because he was just that special of a guy, and he would do anything for a guy who might be a fourth string running back from Wisconsin, some small part of Wisconsin or something. He'd help them get jobs. And, that's that's doing above and beyond, and it's just amazing. But that's who the guy was. He's just an amazing person who was special, I think, to anybody who ever got an opportunity to play for him.
Share what you want, but what did you talk about the last time you spoke with him?
You know, it was funny. I actually teased him a little bit about, because he didn't like when I imitated him, but I teased him a little bit about imitating him and how much fun it was to try to get a little bit better with that, during game days and all those kinds of things. And, we literally just talked as if he was healthy as a horse, and it was just another meeting, but clearly it wasn't. And, the guy really, in so many ways, I think just what he impressed upon so many people and got them into the mindset that they can do things that they probably didn't think that they could do. Just magical, because he really did care about everybody. And I think that's my biggest takeaway. And even while I was talking to him and going back and forth with Skip, his son, we brought up other names and different times in our lives. And he used to bring me to huge events that he was a part of, where he was a part of something for Notre Dame, and he'd invite me to come speak. And I would look at him and I'd say, "Hey, Coach, I know you remember this, but I didn't go to Notre Dame. I went to Minnesota." But he didn't care. He would bring me along and have me, do talks about how he influenced me in the direction that I was going, in the path that I was going on in my adulthood and all. And just a really, really special guy who wanted the best for everybody.
I appreciate you jumping on, man, on short notice. It means a lot to me, truly. And sorry for your loss for your coach. I'm glad you got to spend a little bit of time with him here recently. And I'm sure you're hearing from a lot of former teammates, and you guys, I'm sure, have been talking the last couple of months and sharing all those stories. So I wish all you guys the best and peace with everything for your coach. I really appreciate it.
Oh, you're a good man, Justin. Thank you so much, man. I really appreciate that.
Safe travels, all right?
Thank you.
Pete Najarian, really appreciate him jumping on here as he's about to hop on a flight, I think back here from the West Coast, to talk about his coach, Lou Holtz, passing away at 89 years old. Appreciate Alec Lewis's patience. We will get to him on the other side. We will talk Vikings football with him. And don't forget, Pat Kessler makes his weekly Wednesday appearance in the 5 o'clock hour.
This is your season to experience the energy, the goals, and unforgettable moments at Grand Casino Arena. And get your tickets now at wild.com/tickets to cheer on the Wild this season. Wild.com/tickets.
Welcome back to the Fan. Guardian for Barreiro today. Pat Kessler will join in the 5 o'clock hour. We've got Top 5 at 5 as well. I opened this segment a little later than intended with Alec Lewis from The Athletic with a thank you, Alec, for your patience and flexibility. We just chatted with Pete Najarian, former Golden Gopher football player who played for Lou Holtz, who died at 89, his family announced today. So thank you for the flexibility, my friend, and going just a few minutes later. I hope you're doing well.
Yeah, no, Brett told me that Pete was hopping on, and I saw that news as I was on a walk earlier. What a legend Lou Holtz was. But, happy to be here. Seems like some things are going on with the Vikings, so whatever I can offer, I'll do my best.
You tell me. These are wild times, and I kind of came to the epiphany here in the last day or so. It's amazing to turn on the national scene every morning like I do, and all they're talking about is J.J. McCarthy. They're talking about the Vikings quarterback. Every quarterback that blows his nose now is that an option for the Vikings? And the most recent is Kyler Murray. So how interested do you think they are now that the news is he will be a former Arizona Cardinal next week? And the second part is, what does that mean for the future of the quarterback position in general? Take it wherever you want to go.
Yeah, so the first answer to the question of how interested do I believe the Vikings are in Kyler Murray, I'd say definitely interested. To the second part about the quarterback situation as a whole, here's what I'd say. Part of the reason the Vikings have been linked to all of these guys is essentially to prevent what happened last year from happening again. What I mean by that is the Vikings in 2025, in the spring of 2025, essentially had their sights set on Daniel Jones, thinking that the exposure he had to Kevin O'Connell and to this offense and to this organization would lead probably to him returning and being the Vikings quarterback as kind of a J.J. McCarthy hedge in 2025. When Daniel Jones chose Indianapolis, the Vikings didn't have a phenomenal backup plan. There was conversation then about Joe Flacco. That's when the Aaron Rodgers topic surfaced. And so this time around, to ensure that they had plan A, plan B, plan C, plan D, plan E, so they don't have a repeat of 2025, it has behooved them to reach out and connect with the representatives of a lot of these quarterbacks. And when you do that, you're going to have reports surface constantly related to those quarterbacks. So that's what I'd say. But the Kyler Murray, to circle it back around, Kyler Murray and that possibility has been one of the team's primary options for weeks now. Part of the reason is because he can sign for a deal that is essentially a $1.3 million deal, and we can go further there, but that's the most succinct way I know how to describe kind of the circumstance at which it stands.
Why is he available in your mind, Kyler Murray?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think some of it is, I think you look at it in three buckets. One of them is just the production. He is a very specific player in that he is a playmaker. I mean, playing in rhythm has never been his foremost ability. So there's the production bucket. There is the personality bucket. And I will say this, I think a lot of the Call of Duty, the video game narrative, I think that in some ways can get tired a little bit, like the Sam Darnold chasing ghosts or seeing ghosts comment did years ago. But I do think from a personality perspective, Kyler Murray, you talk to anybody, they'll tell you he's a quiet guy. It takes a while to earn his trust. I mean, and it's kind of understandable. It's one of the only people ever to be drafted in the top 10 in baseball and football. So he is an athletic talent that requires, I think, really smart thought for him to trust and believe. And then there's the availability bucket with Kyler. Like, that's one of the things I don't want to go under the radar with him, is that he tore his ACL a couple of years ago. He had a serious foot injury last year. So the idea that you would bring him in and there is a guarantee he'd play 17 games is a little bit of a lofty perspective. But I think those three buckets and the combination of all that would be why Arizona is willing to move on at this point.
On one of your most recent pieces, might have been your most recent piece at The Athletic, we're talking with Alec Lewis, guardian for Barreiro. You wrote something that really caught my attention, and I want to read it to the audience that may have missed it and have you expand on it a little bit. And it's about J.J. McCarthy, where you write, the Vikings also knew they were drafting a young player. What they did not envision, especially following an encouraging first training camp that preceded his torn meniscus, was the challenge posed by some of the more elemental aspects of being the face of the franchise. What could those possibly be, Alec Lewis? That is tantalizing to me and troubling, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, so, I mean, you know this, Garzi, but, I mean, I don't write anything without being very, I would say, careful, thoughtful, and empathetic, really, above all else, when I write anything, but specifically something like that. Part of the point that I wanted to make there was you've heard a lot of people, I think understandably, when they talked about J.J. McCarthy, say, well, the day that he tore his meniscus and Kevin O'Connell announced it to reporters in Cleveland at joint practices, he said, Vikings fans, you can feel comfortable and confident that we found our quarterback of the future. And so people have latched on to that comment from that time. And part of the hope with writing that it would be to say to people that things can change between certain times. So that was part of it. And then the more elemental aspects of being the face of a franchise, I mean, it is a position that it's not a leadership position like general manager and head coach, but there is an expectation of professionalism in every respect in terms of work habits, in terms of mannerisms. All of that stuff factors into the most successful guys at this position. And I mean, you can look around the league at Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen and how I would say when they surface publicly, it is typically either a byproduct of wizardry on the field or wisdom / maturity off of the field. And those are just two critical components if that person is going to lead your entire organization from that perch for years and years to come.
And that surprised me, honestly, because I'm just thinking about his pedigree, Alec. He's a Michigan guy. He plays for Harbaugh. He's at least had some counsel with Tom Brady. You know, like, to me, that's like that in and of itself. It's like you spend any time around Tom Brady if you're not like locked in and motivated. Like, how surprised were you to have you report on the team, so I'm sure you're not. But to an outsider like me, I was surprised to hear like this is a guy who's been groomed to be a quarterback his whole life, right? From IMG Academy to everything that goes along with it. That really surprised me. Did it surprise you as these things have started to come out a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I would say some of this stuff, there are certain times in which you feel comfortable reporting stuff and certain times where you feel like you have to do a ton of digging. I got to the point, obviously, a few days ago and in writing that where, you know, after I would say more than a year of conversations related to the subject, you know, I felt comfortable and confident and very convicted in that stuff. But there's no question. I mean, some of the reporting on this started before the Vikings settled on Sam Howell and Carson Wentz last spring.
Right.
And so that at the time made the Aaron Rodgers conversation more sensible. And at the time you're balancing how much conviction do you have in reporting certain facets. But there's no question when it first surfaced, you're surprised because of everything you talked about there, Garzi. Like, you know, he led Michigan to a national championship. He was a front-facing figure for as close of a college program. I mean, as close to professional of a college program that exists for a head coach that had played and coached in the NFL. So, yeah, it's been an interesting layer, I would say, to the odyssey and the journey that has been the 2 years since the Vikings drafted JJ.
Last couple of minutes with Alec Lewis, covers the Vikings for The Athletic. He's outstanding. Always appreciate when he jumps on with Bumper to Bumper. He's interrupting family time. Speaking of down south in football, interrupting family time to talk football. What's going on with Jonathan Grenard? A lot of steam and speculation around him and his potential future here.
Yeah, so when the Vikings signed Jonathan Grenard in 2024, I mean, they paid him pretty handsomely. It was like a 3 or 4 year deal that I believe ran through 2027. And at the time, again, it was a pretty fair deal for both sides in that Jonathan Grenard had dealt with some injuries prior to 2024. The Vikings really believed in what he could be in Brian Flores' system, and it's worked out really well. Like the last 2 years, I don't need to tell anybody listening to KFAN this. They know full well how talented of a player Jonathan Grenard is, how much of a voice he's had as a leader in the locker room. But if you look at his contract now, he is owed $19 million for 2026 and $19 million in 2027. And that would put him around the 15th highest paid edge rusher in the NFL. It is my understanding that he'd prefer to be paid more. And the Vikings, given their cap situation and given the fact he's already under contract, are I'd say they're trying to be malleable as they can, but they're trying to be smart in how they operate as well. And so Jonathan Grenard is represented by Drew Rosenhaus. I'm sure Drew Rosenhaus will be gauging the NFL to see if there is a team willing to pay premium draft capital and premium money to acquire Jonathan Grenard. I think it's going to be a pretty uphill battle. And if there is no team willing to pay up, then, Minnesota will have a lot of leverage in terms of having Jonathan Grenard under contract at the value that it already exists.
I appreciate the flexibility again today, man. Thanks so much for joining me. It's always great to have you on the show. Enjoy family time, and we will see you back in the Twin Cities, probably sooner than you would rather care to admit, right, with the draft and minicamp and free agency and everything that's coming up. But thank you, man. I appreciate you.
Always Guardsy. And yeah, I mean, the NFL, these guys, I mean, they don't stop. I mean, they have built this thing where it is just phenomenal in terms of their media apparatus, and I give them credit for it. But no, appreciate it. It's always fun. Hope everybody up there is well. And I saw it was 49 degrees, and I'm kind of sad I left. But
yeah, we're living the dream right now, man. Especially with your workout regimen in the off season, you'd be wearing a bro tank walking around Minneapolis right now. That's how you'd be rolling. That's the kind of temperature we're dealing with.
The shoulders are going to be an uphill battle over the next few months with how much computer nerding time I'm going to do. But you try to get over it.
We'll be ready. Thank you, buddy.
Thanks, Gardy.
Alec Lewis from The Athletic with the latest on Kyler Murray, who apparently we're all in on, and the latest on Jonathan Grenard. When we come back, top 5 at 5. Anything you want to tease, Brett Blakemore?
The heartbreaking news, Lou Holtz passing away. We'll get more thoughts on that and maybe some sports as well.